The Civil War was tearing the nation apart, but at its center stood a man carved from iron and sorrow, Abraham Lincoln, tall, gaunt, with eyes that had seen too much darkness, yet still searching for light. He carried the Union on his shoulders. He signed the words that broke the chains of millions. He walked through storms no man should survive, but just as the guns of war fell silent, another sound was waiting. April 14th, 1865. Ford's Theater glowed with music and laughter. Lincoln stepped inside, not as a president in battle, but as a man in search of peace. For a brief moment, the nation's wounds seemed to heal in the warmth of a play. And above him, in the shadows, a figure prepared, an actor with a dagger in his heart and a pistol in his hand. The curtain was rising, the crowd was laughing, and history was seconds away from its deadliest performance. This isn't just a murder, it's an attempt to kill the future of a nation. Welcome to the red pages of history, where every episode uncovers the moment a blade, a bullet, or a belief changed the fate of nations. Let's begin. May 29th, 1809. In a one-room log cabin in the wilderness of Kentucky, a boy entered the world who would one day carry the weight of a divided nation on his shoulders. His name? Abraham Lincoln. He was not born into privilege. His father, Thomas Lincoln, was a struggling farmer. His mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, died when Abraham was just 9 years old. The boy grew up in poverty, his hands blistered from swinging an axe, his nights filled with the silence of forests and the sting of grief. He had less than a year of formal schooling in total, yet he devoured every book he could find. By the dim glow of a fireplace, he read the Bible, Shakespeare, Aesop's fables, and law books borrowed from neighbors. From the beginning, Lincoln's life was shaped by hardship and resilience. He split rails, worked as a farmhand, clerked in a store, and even tried his hand at wrestling. He was tall, awkward, often ridiculed for his appearance. But behind the lanky frame and rough clothes was a sharp mind and a heart that burned with curiosity. As a young man, Lincoln moved to Illinois. He worked as a shopkeeper, a surveyor, and even served as a captain in the Black Hawk War. He saw little combat, yet he carried something more lasting from that experience, the weight of responsibility when men looked to him for orders. It was his first taste of leadership, but it was his gift for words that truly set him apart. In taverns and town squares, Lincoln told stories, cracked jokes, and debated politics. Crowds leaned closer when he spoke. They laughed, they wept, and they remembered. People began to notice the tall, self-taught lawyer with a voice that could bend both laughter and sorrow. Lincoln studied law on his own and became a successful attorney. He was known for his honesty, so much so that he earned the nickname Honest Abe. He defended the poor, challenged the powerful, and built a reputation as a man who sought truth above all else. In politics, he served in the Illinois state legislature and later in the U.S. House of Representatives, but it was his debates with Senator Stephen Douglas in 1858 that made him a national figure. Lincoln spoke passionately against the spread of slavery, declaring, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." These words echoed across America, capturing the moral crisis of the age. In 1860, against all odds, Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th President of the United States. His victory enraged the South, and within months, 11 states seceded from the Union. The Civil War had begun. Lincoln faced the greatest trial any American president had ever known, to preserve the Union while confronting the brutal reality of slavery. He was mocked, hated, even despised by many. Newspapers called him a fool. Politicians plotted against him. But he carried on, guided by the belief that the Union must endure. In 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in Confederate states to be free. With a stroke of his pen, he didn't just alter a law, he altered the destiny of millions. For the first time, freedom was written not as a dream, but as a command. Later that year, on a field still soaked in blood, where graves outnumbered trees, he rose and delivered just 272 words that would become immortal. The Gettysburg Address. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Those words, spoken among the dead, carried the weight of eternity. But Lincoln was not just a president. He was a husband to Mary Todd Lincoln and a father who adored his children. He loved telling stories, often using humor to ease the tension of war. He battled depression, carried the weight of personal loss, and yet found strength in his sense of duty. He was not perfect. He made mistakes, doubted himself, and faced crushing criticism. But what made Lincoln extraordinary was his ability to rise above despair, to see beyond the hatred of his time, and to dream of a nation healed. By the spring of 1865, Lincoln had achieved what many thought impossible. The Union was saved, slavery was dying, and America stood at the edge of a new beginning. The cannons had fallen silent. The nation began to breathe again. And yet, in the wings of a crowded theater, history was sharpening its knife. The year is 1865. The United States is a nation torn apart. For 4 years, the Civil War has raged. Brother against brother, state against state. More than 600,000 lives have already been lost. In the North, factories thunder with the sound of industry. Immigrants flood into New York, Boston, and Chicago, chasing the promise of freedom. In the South, the economy lies in ruins. Plantations once built on slavery stand broken, their power turned to dust. In Washington, the streets are filled with soldiers on crutches, widows in black, and freedmen stepping into liberty for the first time. Uncertain, unsteady, yet unchained. This is Lincoln's America, a land scarred by war, balanced between hope and hatred. The Union has survived, but the wounds are still raw. Some dream of rebuilding, others dream only of revenge. And in this fragile silence, a single man believes he can shatter the future with one bullet. John Wilkes Booth was no ordinary man. He was a star of the stage, admired, applauded, a face known across America. But beneath the spotlight burned fury. To Booth, Lincoln was not a savior. He was a tyrant who had crushed the South. And so, the actor prepared for his darkest role, not on stage, not in art, but in blood. Booth dreamed it would plunge Washington into chaos, ignite rebellion, and make him a Southern hero. But history remembers him not as a hero, not even as a soldier, but as the man who turned a theater into a tomb. In trying to save the South, he condemned himself to history's darkest corner. April 14th, 1865. Washington breathes easier for the first time in years. Lanterns glow on damp streets. Music drifts from taverns. The war is over. Hope feels almost touchable. Ford's Theater, 8 p.m. Velvet curtains catch the lamplight. The scent of gas lamps and sawdust hangs in the air. The audience hums. Uniforms beside silk, sorrow beside relief. The nation is stitched together by fragile threads, and for a brief evening, everyone wants to believe the wound can heal. Lincoln arrives, tall, gentle-eyed, leaning into Mary's arm. The crowd rises, cheers ripple like a wave. He nods, shy and warm. For a moment, the room feels safe. For a moment, the war feels truly over. Across town, a man checks a pistol. He ties a small, sharp dagger beneath his coat. He rehearses each movement like a script. He knows the timing, the laughter, the blocking, the rhythm of the play. To him, tonight is not murder. Tonight is theater. His performance will end with history as his audience. His name is John Wilkes Booth. 10:10 p.m. Booth slips through the alley behind the theater, familiar as any backstage corridor. He moves like an actor between scenes. A nod to the stagehand, a quick smile for the attendant, charisma as a key. He reaches the presidential box door. A wooden brace has been placed within reach to jam it from the inside. He's planned this. He's rehearsed this. Inside the box, Lincoln leans forward, enjoying the comedy. Mary smiles. Major Henry Rathbone and Clara Harris sit nearby. Laughter lands in quick bursts, light, silly, harmless. The president, weary from years of war, allows himself to laugh. Booth steadies his breath. He is about to deliver what he believes is the closing line of America's tragedy. 10:14 p.m. Booth raps lightly. The attendant steps aside. He enters quietly, a shadow among shadows. His boots barely whisper. He slides the wooden brace into place. The door is now locked from within. One man, one room, one shot. Booth's eyes find the president, unguarded, unafraid, leaning into a joke. For a heartbeat, Booth hesitates. The theater swells with laughter. No one notices the shadow standing behind the president. He raises the derringer. 10:15 p.m. A perfect storm of timing. On stage, a punchline lands. The audience erupts. Laughter becomes a curtain. Booth squeezes the trigger. A single blast snaps the air. The sound is swallowed by laughter, then returns as a tremor. Lincoln flinches, then stills. Shoulders soften, head tilts. The light leaves the eyes, but not the face. Mary reaches for him. The joke on stage dies mid-breath. For a heartbeat, no one understands. Then the wave hits. Panic, shrieks, the collapse of laughter into chaos. Silence arrives like a scream. Rathbone lunges, a flash of steel. Booth's hidden dagger carves a desperate arc. Rathbone recoils, wounded but defiant, grabbing for the intruder. Booth pulls free. The stage calls him, the spotlight waiting at the edge of ruin. He vaults the railing. Leather soles scrape wood. He drops to the stage. His heel catches a draped flag. His ankle twists. He staggers, then straightens. Gaslight paints him gold. He lifts his arm, a silhouette framed by velvet and shock. Sic Semper Tyrannis, thus always to tyrants. Some cheer, instinct, confusion. Most gasp. No one understands, and everyone does. The actor has taken his final bow, but it is stained in blood. Top row. A soldier tries to stand, knees buckling in disbelief. Middle aisle. A woman clutches her throat. Her laugh turns into a choked sob. Orchestra pit. A violin slides from trembling fingers, strings crying a single note. On stage, the actors freeze, caught between play and reality. In the box, Mary calls for help, voice shredded with fear. Hands reach for Lincoln, gentle, urgent, reverent. A doctor in the audience climbs, breathless, carrying nothing but duty. Booth runs backstage. He knows this maze. He slips through curtains, past ropes and sandbags, into the alley. A waiting horse stamps the dirt. He swings up, pain slicing through his ankle. He turns south, fury as compass, night as cloak. Washington begins to howl. They cannot wake him. They will not let him die alone. Across the street, a small boarding house. Warm lamplight, narrow bed, wallpaper patterned with tiny, fading flowers. A modest room, suddenly transformed into the stage of the nation's sorrow. Soldiers guard the doorway, their faces pale, rifles idle in trembling hands. Cabinet members crowd the hall, whispering prayers, exchanging looks that say more than words ever could. Lincoln is laid down carefully, too tall for its frame, his boots removed, his body stretched diagonally to fit. His breathing rattles, shallow and uneven, each exhale weaker than the last. The bullet has lodged behind his eye. No surgeon can reach it. No medicine can touch it. The leader of the Union drifts somewhere between life and silence. Mary Todd Lincoln clutches his hand, her sobs breaking against the quiet. Officers urge her to rest, but she refuses. She whispers his name as if her voice could anchor him. Beside her, young Robert Lincoln stands stiff, holding back tears, already burdened with the knowledge that his father is slipping away. Doctors lean in with candles, checking the pulse at his neck, the dilation of his pupils. They know the truth, but do not speak it aloud. They measure time, not in hours, but in fading breaths. Through the night, Washington gathers outside. Crowds form in the dark streets, thousands standing shoulder to shoulder, lanterns held like fragile stars. They do not sing, they do not speak, they wait. An entire nation holds vigil for one man. Dawn creeps through the shutters. A thin gray light spills across the room. Lincoln's chest rises once, twice, falters. At 7:22 a.m., April 15th, 1865, the watch stops ticking. The doctor at his side presses 2 fingers to the throat, then lowers his hand. He looks at the room and says the words that freeze history in place. He now belongs to the ages. Silence falls heavier than any cannon. In that quiet, the United States loses not just a president, but the fragile dream of reconciliation. Mary collapses in grief. Robert turns away, shoulders shuddering. Hardened generals bow their heads like children. Outside, a wave of mourning rolls through the crowd. Screams, sobs, disbelief. Bells toll across Washington. Flags fall to half-mast. The war has ended, but a new wound has opened. Abraham Lincoln's body is carried by train across the nation he fought to preserve. Millions line the tracks, watching as the black-draped cars roll past. In city after city, crowds kneel, weep, and salute. Children are lifted onto shoulders for one last glimpse of the man who had held the Union together with words, will, and sacrifice. He had risen from a one-room cabin in Kentucky to the highest office in the land. He had carried a fractured nation through fire. And though a bullet silenced his voice, his words still thunder. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. The theater became a tomb, but his memory became a monument. Stone and steel would later rise in his honor, but his true memorial was carved into the conscience of a country, because Abraham Lincoln did not simply die. He was martyred, transformed into an eternal figure of hope, unity, and the unfinished struggle for freedom. The night at Ford's Theater was meant to end a life. Instead, it ignited a legend. And out there in the darkness, a rider digs his heels into a horse, convinced he has reshaped history. He has, but not in the way he dreams. Violence is swift, consequences linger. A bullet can shatter a body, but it cannot silence an idea. So hold the picture, the velvet box, the golden glow, the sudden dark. Freeze it, keep it with you, because the curtain has not fallen. The hunt begins. Nets will spread, barns will burn, and the final act waits, where an actor's last line is not applause, but smoke. John Wilkes Booth, the actor who became an assassin. He was born into fame. John Wilkes Booth, son of a legendary acting family, grew up in the glow of stage lights. Handsome, charismatic, adored by audiences, he was the kind of man who could command a room with a glance. On stage, he played heroes and villains alike. Off stage, he carried himself like a star who believed destiny had chosen him for something greater. But behind the applause, Booth's heart beat for the Confederacy. He despised Lincoln, calling him a tyrant who had destroyed the South and unleashed chaos by freeing the enslaved. To Booth, the president was not a savior. He was the enemy of everything Booth believed in. And so, the actor began to write his own script, not for a play, but for history. Booth gathered a circle of loyalists, each with a role in his bloody drama. Lewis Powell, assigned to stab Secretary of State William Seward in his own home. George Atzerodt, tasked with killing Vice President Andrew Johnson. David Herold, to guide Powell and help him escape. Mary Surratt, who provided the safe house, weapons, and meeting place. Their plan was bold. Strike all at once. Kill the president, the vice president, and the Secretary of State, decapitate the Union government, and throw Washington into chaos. Booth believed he would be remembered as a Southern Brutus, the man who avenged the Confederacy. When Booth fired his pistol into Lincoln's skull, he leapt to the stage and shouted, "Sic Semper Tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. But instead of cheers, he found confusion and horror. His ankle snapped as he landed, yet he fled into the night, carried by adrenaline and rage. For 12 days he hides, convinced he is a hero, writing in his diary that the world will praise his act. He limped through swamps, slept in barns, and relied on sympathizers to hide him. But the net was closing. On April 26th, 1865, soldiers cornered Booth in a tobacco barn in Virginia. Surrounded, he refused to surrender. The barn was set ablaze. Flames licked the rafters, smoke filled the air. Booth raised his pistol, but before he could fire, a Union soldier shot him through the neck. He collapsed, paralyzed, whispering his last words, "Tell my mother I died for my country." The actor's final performance ended not with applause, but with fire and silence. Lewis Powell stormed Seward's home and slashed him brutally, but Seward survived. Powell was captured and later hanged. George Atzerodt lost his nerve and never attacked Johnson. He too was arrested and executed. David Herold fled with Booth, but surrendered at the barn. He was hanged. Mary Surratt, the boarding house owner who aided the plot, became the first woman executed by the U.S. government. In total, 4 conspirators were hanged, others imprisoned for life. The conspiracy that was meant to save the South only deepened its defeat. Booth imagined himself a hero, a liberator, a name sung in Southern ballads. Instead, history remembers him as a murderer who turned a theater into a tomb. His bullet did not restore the Confederacy. It only plunged America into deeper grief and left scars that would take generations to heal. This was the night when laughter turned into screams, when velvet curtains hid not a play, but a nation's heartbreak. A single shot tried to silence the future, yet it only carved the name of Abraham Lincoln deeper into eternity. History does not honor the assassin. It remembers the man who held a broken union together, who spoke of liberty in the face of hate, who dreamed of a nation reborn. This is the Red Pages of history, where every episode reveals the moments when blades, bullets, and beliefs rewrote the fate of empires. If this story has gripped you, if you felt the echoes of that night still whisper through time, then join us. Subscribe now, so you will not miss the next chapter hidden in the shadows of the past, because the red pages are still turning, and the next one waits.